Alright, Dan, Hardwood Hollow Skills channel here. Today's project, what we're going to do is we are going to use this female plug that I picked up at Harbor Freight the other day. This is a 15 amp plug, and what we're going to do with it is I have this old cord that the end was cut off. I was missing a female end, so I picked one up when I was at Harbor Freight, and we're going to show you how you install one of those. So let's back this out so we have a little bit more working area. So this is 125 volt 15 amp, and it's a heavy duty. So you've got at this end, this is where your cable goes in. You've got two Phillips head screws. That's what's going to clamp the cord end when it goes in to give you strength. So let's start with setting that aside, and we'll prep this cable. So first you got to come back about an inch, and you're going to cut your insulation. You're only cutting the outside insulation. Break it, peel it back. Now you're going to reveal your three cords inside, three wires inside, positive, negative, and ground. And then this one has the manila rope fibers. We're just going to cut those away. That just gives the cord extra strength. Newer ones have different materials, different synthetic materials, but this is a rather old cord, but it's still quite useful. So we're going to go ahead and cut those cords out of the way. Remember, always close your utility knife when it's not in use so that you don't accidentally cut yourself. Alright. Now we're going to strip these ends. So let's go ahead and, before we do that, open the plug and see what distance it requires to be stripped. So we'll go ahead and unscrew these screws. We're going to take them out completely so we can disassemble this cord. This plug rather, this female plug. And since we were just showing it, we'll use our magnetic parts tray to put the screws in so we don't lose them. Now I'm going to take the clamp off. And then there's three screws in the end here. So we're going to remove those three screws. Now technically that clamp only needs to be loosened. I'm just taking it completely apart to make it easier to show you what I'm doing here. So we're going to take these long screws out, set them in our parts tray, and then that'll allow this end to pull out. This end is indexed, so you see this tab and that slot in there, so they're going to index together so that it always goes back to the same spot so that your screw holes will line up. Alright, so now you're going to take this cord, slide it all the way through. You're just going to let that lay back there. Now it appears that I'm only going to need about 1/4 of an inch from each end to fit into these. So each of these can be cut off. Let me get a better pair of wire cutters. So we're going to take these down to about 1/4 of an inch. I'll leave them about 1/2 an inch. That way we'll have a little slack in there. So we'll cut these down to about 1/2. Alright. Now, if you check, most of your cables will have markings on them. These markings are old, but they will tell you the specifications of the cord. So it will tell you, it should tell you the sizes. So this one says that these are 16 gauge wires inside. So if you come to your wire strippers here, you'll notice that it says 10, 12, 14, 16, 18, and 20 up to 22. I'm going to use the 16 gauge to get in here and strip 1/4 of an inch. So you clamp down, give it a twist, pull it right off. Bend that one aside, stand the next one up, go down to 1/4 of an inch, clamp down, rotate it, you'll feel it kind of break free, and then you can pull it off. Bend that one out of the way, bring this one up. Again, we're using the 16 gauge, going down about 1/4 of an inch and stripping them down. Now once they're stripped, you want to twist them back tight. Alright, now we've got, your screws are colored, so we've got green for green, black for black, white for white, silver for white. So you'll always get them in the right slot. So now let's go ahead and loosen these screws. I don't know if I was in frame for that. So we've got green for green, silver for white, black for black. That makes it easy to get these wires all properly lined up. Now we're going to loosen these screws and start connecting the wires. So you'll notice when I loosen that screw that it opens up a slot here. So I'll show you how this one works when I loosen it up. You actually put the wire into that slot and it'll clamp in, and that's how it'll hold the cable tight. It clamps, the wire clamps right in between those two pins. Going to need a small flat screwdriver to pry that open, just to make sure that I can get them into the slot properly. Alright, so now we're going to do my ground first. I'm going to slide that in next to the screw, in between that channel, and then we're going to come back in and tighten that screw. Tighten each one as you put the wire in, otherwise it may not stay in. Don't over tighten them. These are brass, and if you over tighten them, they very well can come off. Okay, I need to take just a tiny bit more of that insulation off so I can maneuver this cable. So to do that, I'm going to go ahead and pull the ground wire back off. And then we're going to take a little bit more of that insulation off. We'll go another 1/2 inch or so. Close the utility knife. Now in this case I'm not going to, I should go ahead and just trim those off, get them out of the way. So we'll trim these off. Alright, close the utility knife. Now we'll get back, we'll hook the ground back up. Get that sucker tightened up. Now, white for in the silver groove. And now we'll tighten that one down. Like I said, you tighten them snug, but you don't want to over tighten them because you can strip that brass out. You're running a steel screw into brass, and you don't want to strip it out. That one's just a little less. I want a little more insulation stripped off of that one. We'll tighten that down. And and feed that into its slot. Didn't mean to do that. And then we'll tighten that one down too. Alright, so those are all snug down tight. Now we're going to slide this back up. And remember, I told you it's indexed, so that tab lines up with that slot. And then what we're going to do is slide this half in, slide this half in. And the reason I'm doing this first is I want to crimp these so that the cord doesn't pull out, and then I'll tighten the other end first. So we're just going to get these on to get them started, like so. Now we're going to flip this up, and we've got these 3 screws to put in. 1, 2, 3. And we'll run those screws in. Remember, this is steel screws and plastic, so do not over tighten it. Now we're going to come back to the back, and you can see where it's starting to clamp down on the cable here, so we're going to start tightening that down. I like to go a little bit at a time on each side and just check so I don't over torque one side over the other. Try and keep them as even as possible. Now that's good and tight. That's what we want. Alright, let's check it. I've got my fan here. Alright, we'll take our cord here, plug in our fan, and we'll test it. Fan works. So we've assembled that extension cord correctly. So that is how you install the female end onto an extension cord, and in this case we're using the Harbor Freight female end that I picked up the other day on Black Friday. Alright, thanks for watching. I'm out.